Be careful with all the semantics out there in the financial world, because you're going to hear in the next few years about all these losses in retirement plans and in the market, and right now we're having this big run-up. But the money isn't lost. Be crystal clear about that. The money is transferred into other people's hands. And the ignorance tax is the worst tax of all. So money doesn't disappear or go out in the woods and get buried very often, unless like we're in the mob days or something like that. Instead, it goes to people who are in the know and people that are playing a game that is already rigged against them. So I want to make sure this framework gives you the game to rig in your favor. So the third way to live within your means is to expand your means. Expand your means. Yeah, keep more of what you make. That's the first lever. The second lever is to strategically engineer wealth, which means find your economic independence number. What is it? Reverse engineer and say, what's the number one thing you could do today to get there faster? What's the second thing you're gonna do? What's your foundation? Do you have that handled? Do you have the right car, home, liability, disability, medical, life insurance, business owner policies, corporate structures, estate plans, and liquidity? That's your foundation. Don't skip that, because if you skip the foundational piece, you're one incident away from having wealth confiscated from you. And all of us are in store for financial surprises, yet we can address 90+% of them with proper planning, that if that happens or when something happens, it doesn't have to confiscate your wealth or derail you. See, the Rockefellers understood this. When you read that book, and hopefully you do, because it's not that pretty of a book. Killing Sacred Cows is prettier. My son asked me that. Like, that's a 10-year-old's question. Which book do you think looks nicer, Dad? Killing Sacred Cows? Like, who cares? But yeah. But if it just sits in your bag, it doesn't do any good. If you read it, you'll see that the Rockefellers are on their 6th generation of wealth. Most families that wealthy never make it past the 3rd generation, and the Vanderbilts had more money than the US Treasury, yet 9 years after Cornelius died, they had doubled their net worth and his oldest son died, and then within 54 years, the first Vanderbilts started dying broke, because they never addressed protecting their money. They never addressed handling these things that could happen to confiscate the wealth. And the more successful you are, the more you're susceptible to the success tax. The success tax is people want what you have. Or there was times I did so well in real estate that I thought I was really smart, but I just had good timing and I had nothing to do with it. So all of a sudden I thought if one's good, 100's better, right? That's a success tax. And be careful with all the semantics out there in the financial world, because you're gonna hear in the next few years about all these losses in retirement plans and in the market, and right now we're having this big run-up. But the money isn't lost. Be crystal clear about that. The money is transferred into other people's hands. And the ignorance tax is the worst tax of all. So money doesn't disappear or go out in the woods and get buried very often, unless like we're in the mob days or something like that. Instead, it goes to people who are in the know and people that are playing a game that is already rigged against them. So I want to make sure this framework gives you the game to rig in your favor. So the first part of strategically engineering wealth is build the foundation. The second part is safety, which creates sustainability. That might be things like learning about umbrella policies, having asset protection trust, building up, an opportunity fund, getting lines of credit so you have liquidity. That's what that could be. And then the third piece is growing it, building that cash flow plan to become a better investor. The third lever to economic independence. The first one was keep more of what you make. The second was strategically engineer wealth. The third one is to accelerate investment income. Any money you have right now that's not producing cash flow, if you're not economically independent, is a huge opportunity to get to that advantage where you can get 10 times the growth. Because all of a sudden, every active dollar could go be reinvested. So turn those lazy assets into cash flow. If you have retirement plans, you can learn about a 72T distribution. That allows you to get that money out without the 10% penalty. Or self-directed IRAs, where you open up to the world of investing instead of just the brokerage houses of investing. The fourth thing, another big game changer, scale business revenue. All these books, I heard Ryan ask a question about Tony Robbins' book, and here's the thing about that book. It is a great map on how to be better at being middle class. I'm sorry, it is. I don't mean to be mean about it, but like he says, hey, owning a business is risky, but Tony didn't make his money putting his money in index funds or indexed annuities or any of that. He made his money being a world-class speaker and owning a whole bunch of businesses, and I want you to remember that is don't go invest in other people's boardrooms or other people's visions or other people's dreams before you fully funded your own. Don't prematurely diversify. Usually premature is not a good word, right? Like premature babies. I can't think of other things that would go with. Sorry, I have a comedy show I'm doing tomorrow. So scaling your business revenue, invest in people, processes, technological procedure, build that. Find ways that you could build more cash flow without you being directly involved every step of the way. You're gonna build more equity. Business is three-dimensional: equity, cash flow, and personal fulfillment, because you can actually connect to and course correct in the things that you're doing in that business. And the fifth piece of this is to make it count. You don't get a second chance at a first-class lifestyle. This whole notion, if you just defer and sacrifice, then one day, someday, you're gonna be happy. If you learn to be a miser, you don't just flip the switch one day and go like, oh cool, now I'm abundant, I'm a nice person, not an asshole that just saves every dollar and just thinks about money 24/7. That doesn't work that way. What happens is, if we buy into the reductionist thinking and scarcity, you will never be wealthy even if you have a decent-sized bank account. Because you'll feel like if you utilize that money or spend that money, that all of a sudden you're harming your net worth. Net worth is relatively worthless if it can't be converted to cash flow. I know people have had big net worth and had big bankruptcy that went along with it because it was illiquid, because they didn't understand how to manage cash flow. And this notion of retiring by accumulating money, wealth accumulation is slow. You want to be fast and sustainable, it's wealth acceleration, it's cash flow, it's velocity. See, here's the old equation. Wealth equals money times rate times time. So if you want more wealth, they say add more money. That's stupid. Okay, if I add more money, I'll have more in the future? Maybe. Depends on how bad the investments are that you choose, right? Second, take more risk. Who was drunk on Wall Street that's like, let's just tell people high risk equals high return to sell this piece of crap investment, right? And then time, oh yeah, just wait longer. That's great news. And if none of that works, they say move to Ecuador. You know, it's cheap there. You might have dysentery when it's over, but you need to die early. You didn't have enough money. That's a crappy model. Here's the different model. Velocity is the GDP, which is the output of our economy, divided by the money supply. What that means is the more times dollars circulate through goods, services, experiences, the more they circulate, the more wealth that's built. That wealth isn't a finite pie. It's not a zero-sum game. If I give you money, you get to take that money and utilize it again. How often do we utilize that? That's investing. See, when people hear the word expense, they usually think of it negatively, like it's bad or wrong. But your income is someone else's expense. And real investors know this. Sometimes investments show up as an expense on the income statement initially, but assets and income for the long term. The right employee, the right mentor, the right marketing program, the right resources. So keep more of what you make, identify that economic independence number, and start working towards it. Find your existing resources and be more resourceful by turning the cash flow on and getting rid of lazy assets. Scale your business revenue, which means invest in yourself before you go invest in everything else. And then the fifth thing is make it count, which means you have this legacy that you're living. Legacy isn't the amount of money you leave behind, because you die twice in your life. First, when your body dies, and second, when the last person that knew of you or of your name ever whispers it on this earth. I'm here to make sure that my legacy lasts, because it's not something that just dies with me, but it's something that's the example I live today by having the right family retreats with my kids, so that we have distilled our core values as a family. So we have a family crest as a family, just like we have a logo for our business. So that we have a doctrine that we call our family constitution that governs our trust, that's dynamic and is distilled and is the core philosophies that I've learned in this world that I want generations to be able to benefit from for years and hundreds and decades to come, just like the Constitution of the US, right? But for my own family. And then a family office. The Rockefellers had a family office. Financial professionals that are on the same page, have the same philosophy, communicate with one another, and they're not just paid because they're making some type of commission. Instead, their job is to protect it, preserve it, and perpetuate it. The Vanderbilts didn't have any of those things. They lost all their money. The Rockefellers did. They donated $50 million to charity this year, and their wealth still grew even after David Rockefeller died. That's what I want for you. Because my great-grandfather didn't have that, and he had 7 years where he didn't get to see his family. So I'm on a mission to make sure 1 million entrepreneurs achieve economic independence. If you have it, you can swing for the fences in your business. You can make sure that money isn't your master, but you master your money, and that you make choices with financial freedom in mind. And I use that term very carefully because financial freedom in our world has been a bastardized term, which most people think means an amount of money they have in a bank account. That's not financial freedom. Financial freedom is a state of mind where money is no longer your primary reason or excuse why you would do or not do something. We have a disease and a plague in our world today where money absolutely governs people's decisions to the point where they are manipulated thinking that because there's a Black Friday sale that they're actually saving money. They're not being about investors, they're about consumerism. And you have an opportunity to do something extraordinary, which is have impact, to find what your skill set is, bring it to the world in a form of value creation, and the bottom line is dollars follow value. Make sure nothing destroys your legacy, that you get clear about who you are, you find the path to making more money, and you have the financial team that surrounds you to keep more of every single dollar you make, and you'll be able to get there in a short period of time if you follow the 5-tier methodology I just talked about. Keep more, engineer the wealth, accelerate the investment income, scale the business revenue, and enjoy life along the way because you are your greatest asset, not a stock, not a bond, not a piece of real estate, and surround yourself with good people and get rid of the a-holes. It's that simple.
Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.